Should we dive right into Roseanne?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we all know if you've been living under a rock, then you're not familiar with the idea that Roseanne, the show on ABC, which just made a comeback, highest rated show on ABC, at least this season, was just renewed for season 2. It's been kicked off the air. So Bob Iger, we know, is the head, the CEO of ABC, said no because of a racist tweet sent out by Roseanne Barr herself. They decided that they needed to pull, and we'll get into the tweet and all of that. But they pulled the show completely. So cast members sounded off on this, going, oh my gosh, like we understand why, because of the racism inflicted in this tweet. It sucks for us and all of the people who have been part of this show from the get-go. Huge opportunity, jobs pulled, all because of one tweet. So there are people on both sides of this.
Yeah.
Of course, people that feel that way. I understand why this is happening. That sucks. And others are saying, what? It was one tweet? And how about the, our rights and free speech? Why can't we say things and shows live? Look at the shows like The View that are very opinionated. Why isn't that pulled off of ABC? So again, we'll get into all of that. But now the newest news is that Roseanne overnight tweeted that she is taking Ambien for whatever reason, and she's blaming the prescription drug Ambien for going on this racist rant via Twitter. So now the makers of Ambien came out on Twitter and said, wait, excuse me, and I'm going to read that tweet for you guys because it's interesting. They're saying this. I put this on my Instagram story. People of all races, religions, and nationalities work at Sanofi, I believe I'm saying that right, every day to improve the lives of people around the world. And again, the Sanofi US is the makers of Ambien. While all pharmaceutical treatments have side effects, racism is not a known side effect of any Sanofi medication.
Drops mic.
And then dictionary.com is coming out. And also, I'm getting back into my tweets here, coming out and saying that searches for the meaning of racist have gone up more than 10,700% in the past 24 hours on dictionary.com. I guess people wondering, and we have the tweet up for you right there, people wondering what the word racism or racist means exactly, so that you can know, is this racism, is this not racism, what Roseanne put out on Twitter. So, sound off.
Jessica
Let us know how you're
Downey,
feeling.
good morning, girlfriend. Okay, she says, I personally used to love Roseanne. Her revival seemed more like Republican propaganda to me, so I was not a fan. Do I think her show should have been canceled because of what she said? No, not necessarily. Do I agree with what she said? No, I don't. Jessica, I grew up watching Roseanne too, and I tell Michelle about this all the time because we always do the 9 a.m. together. I was a fan of the show back then. I was a fan of the show now. It was so nostalgic for me, and I saw the transition. It was like, I remember we did an interview with one of the cast members from Roseanne, and sometimes you have to bridle my tongue. And I was like, on TV, I was like, who knew Roseanne was going to, become a Trump supporter? Because she was seemed so liberal back then. And then to see her now be this avid vocal Trump supporter on the show and in her own personal life. And then her sister Jackie was a Hillary Clinton supporter. And so they had the typical family rivalry that I think mirrors a lot of American families. So I think that's why I like the show so much, because it looked kind of like my own, except for my family's brown. But it's those same issues politically with, sexual orientation, because I had to talk to my mom about this yesterday, because this is an issue in our family. And my mom was like, well, didn't she have a gay son? And I was like, no, it was her grandson who wore dresses and all of this other stuff.
In this new iteration of the show.
I see her point, and it was a Republican propaganda, because it put the world through a Republican point of view. Maybe not your typical Republican's point of view, but a Republican's point of view. And it was so enlightening to me, because I don't know that I'd had that experience at all.
So a lot more of you are chiming in right now. James Stevenson says, how many times have people blamed things on that specific medication? Again, talking about Ambien. That being said, she remembered saying it, so that was wrong. But to Walt's point this morning on Morning Blend, he was saying this is damage control. Of course, we get a team of people, which, by the way, Roseanne's agency has also dropped her. So I don't know what kind of backing she has right now, but, she's Roseanne Barr. I'm sure there is someone out there who is putting together some sort of, okay, how are we going to come back? How are we going to survive all of this? But in terms of damage control, bringing in prescription drugs into this, did that surprise you?
Well, let's. There's an apology.
Yeah.
And now she's lashing out at coworkers.
Ooh.
She's lashing out at the drug maker. essentially. I mean, she's not reflecting on this.
But she's also
There's an immediate
retweeting.
reaction.
This is interesting. Can I say this? She's retweeting Charlie Sheen, and this was.
Yes, I saw
Did you see that? Adios, Roseanne. Good riddance. Hashtag not winning. The runway is now clear for our reboot. And he tweets a picture of the script for 2.5 Men.
Okay. Well, I mean, who
Strange
knows?
behavior.
I think there's a breaking point. There's going too far, and everybody knows. You don't need to Google what this is. Everybody in their own life and how they view the world has a point where, you know what, that's just not appropriate. That's not okay. And by making a joke and equating and dehumanizing somebody that you may politically disagree with as being connected to Planet of the Apes, that's just too much. It's too much for ABC. It's too much for the cast members. It's too much for the vast majority of people that are responding to this issue. We all understand that Roseanne Barr is a comedian. She's funny. She's successful. She has a hit show. But that doesn't clear you to say whatever you want without repercussions. You have to understand ABC, you guys, is a very huge brand. They're connected to Disney. They've got a bunch of shows. You know who one of their biggest
ESPN.
producers is? Shonda Rhimes.
Yep.
Okay? She basically is the producer on so many hit shows, and she's responsible for millions of dollars in revenue. So you have to take this as it started off as a tweet, and now it's turned into a situation that ABC is, they're going to lose money on this, but they say it's worth it at the end because they
In the
need to
long
maintain that this is what we do at our network with our shows, and this is what we're going to do. We will have a wide variety of plot lines of appealing to different people and trying to make entertainment for all sorts of political views, but there's just a point in which it goes too far. And Roseanne Barr herself realizes this. She's saying, do not defend her. I went too far.
Me. It's sweet of you to try.
Exactly.
I regret even more.
Those are her words. So, I mean, this is a situation of her own making.
Okay, so Don has chimed in. Don L. Vasquez says, oh, I just lost it.
I know that happens when all of you are tweeting, which we
Roseanne
like.
If Roseanne would have said that in a stand-up routine, that would be different. This is who she is. At least she apologized. So that begs another question. If she said it during a stand-up routine, talking about somebody, anybody, making a racist comment or a joke, would that have been okay?
Well, is
Yes or no?
stand-up considered your truth
Yes.
versus your Twitter account? Is that even considered your truth?
Exactly.
I mean, and it sort of seems like now when I'm seeing all of these different retweets, she's retweeting her cast members who are basically bashing her. Is she behind her Twitter account? And at some point I saw one of our commenters say, she got hacked, everyone. This wasn't really her. Again, some would say excuses.
I think that's an excellent point, and that's all about the freedom of speech and being able to say whatever you want and push the boundaries. But even for stand-up comedians on stage, there's a limit for that too, and you know because there's a public reaction saying you went too far. Let me give you an example. Michael Richards from Seinfeld, one of the greatest comedic actors of all time, one of the richest too. This guy was making millions of dollars per episode. After the show, he did stand-up, and he went too far one night, and he started calling out people in the audience using racial slurs, and he was a comedian. He was doing his act. He felt like that was just part of his bit, and it went too far. And you know what? It's never been the same for Michael Richards ever since, because he can say whatever he wants to say, but the public decided that was too far, and there was something about the way that he said it and the way that he said it that just made them feel uncomfortable, and it ruined his career.
And it goes both ways. You have someone like Roseanne who's tweeting this, specifically against the liberal America, and then you have someone like Kathy Griffin, right? You want to take it back to, was it just maybe 2 years ago, or was it last year?
Oh, no, this was last year.
With that severed head,
Yeah.
the replica of Donald Trump, and it was a severed head of him, while she would think that all of her audience would appreciate that and applaud that. It was too much for the internet.
Mainstream.
And she got pulled from New Year's Eve that year. She got pulled from New Year's Eve on CNN.
Yes.
With Anderson Cooper ended up, was it
Subbing,
Anderson
I think.
Cooper and Andy Cohen?
Yes.
Andy Cohen ended up stepping in for her, and that relationship has since severed. So she's still trying to make a comeback. She shaved her head. She's making a comeback, saying, okay, I'm sorry. She apologized. There was a whole PR thing around that. So yes, there is a thing of going too far.
I have a comment.
And that's irrespective of your political viewpoint. And I think that that's important, is that people tend to see things through their political lens, which totally makes sense.
Yes.
But as you view that, just question yourself, is there a limit to anything? You know, what is your limit? What is your personal limit about what you can say about somebody without any sort of backlash, or that it's totally acceptable? And for many people, for Kathy Griffin, that was way too much, way too bloody, violent, just not funny.
It was
at
a
all.
threat to our president.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and in some,
Wasn't
you
the
certainly.
FBI after her? I mean, it
Yes.
was a serious thing.
That was very.
And then Roseanne Barr, again, different political viewpoint entirely, but again, there are boundaries to these
there
things.
should be boundaries.
You can say whatever you want, but not without repercussions from the public.
Yes.
It's funny that you say that, because you know a lot of our viewers are chiming in about The View after this, because a lot of people are like, wait a minute, y'all canceled Roseanne, but
Also
you have
an
The View.
ABC show.
It's also an ABC show.
Yeah.
Let me hear. Here's Ginga. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Ginga says, where is the backlash for the vile women on The View calling POTUS an orange orangutan? Boycott ABC is coming soon. The View comes on right after the 9 o'clock news hour. But, sometimes we watch that, and I do hear sometimes in passing some of those things. Those women can be very liberal and very opinionated, and I have heard different things. So it is interesting to see the kind of dichotomy, so to speak, of that being allowed and that not. I don't have an opinion because I'm a journalist, but I do see where people are calling out both sides. They're like, wait a minute, you're calling out The View and you're canceling a show that we like, while this other show that we don't like so much does a lot of the same things on a regular basis. Granted, they've never used the word, and if you don't know, monkey or being referred to as an ape for a black person has a lot of historical deep roots in this country. So it can almost be equivalent to how the N-word is off limits. Calling someone or referring to a black person as a monkey or an ape is almost as off limits as the other two, just to kind of give a perspective if you didn't know. But I hear you and I see you. The View, sometimes they say things a little like, what do you guys think about that?
Controversial.
Can I bring up
calling the president an orange orangutan?
Patty Preedmore Shower says, I love the return of Roseanne. However, if we are going to be so offended about what people are saying, then let's cancel The View and Whoopi Goldberg, who trashes everyone. No one even attempts to address that show. How come? Roseanne has apologized, but Whoopi would be enraged on The View if anyone attempted to question her. Why?
Good
Maybe
question.
ratings, who's watching what. Roseanne is in prime time. It's in a full hour. People are home. They're watching. They're sitting down. The View is one of those programs where it's geared towards a certain audience. Usually people are staying at home watching
And it's
their kids.
about your view?
It's your own view, and they're presenting their views. Roseanne is a scripted TV show, yes, with their own little storylines. But Roseanne Barr, the actual person behind the character, spoke up and said something that was completely inappropriate.
That didn't align with ABC.
Good perspective.
Yeah.
Good perspective.
They just, it's a business decision, really.
They can do what they want, right?
Yeah, the ABC does not want to be talking about this every day.
No.
And I'm sure it's very difficult because they realize there's a lot of innocent victims here.
Yeah.
All the people that worked on that show that have nothing to do with this, and they just got their careers back on track or what have you. They're all caught up into this as well, and so it's a really sad story in so many different ways, because you'd like to think that you could have these open conversations and you could push the line and
but not too far.
Yeah, exactly, and you could really kind of go there because you understand where it's coming from. But I think people were questioning where this was really coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, if you assume that what she's saying is true about that she was under the influence, it's when people are intoxicated, sometimes they say or do things that they normally wouldn't. So you have to be careful. Of course, you could say they're going to do something that's totally out of character, or something that they've always wanted to do that they don't do. And we can't go there to say her intentions. We just can't. I'm just saying, for the people that want to go there, that's their ammunition that she's saying.
Deanne Blyton says, Roseanne has apologized over and over. We all make verbal mistakes and are forgiven. I feel this has gone overboard. These comments happen all the time. Forgive and forget, people. Desiree Becerra Brito, oh my God, get over it. Put your energy into something more important like Flint, Michigan, many other places in America without clean drinking water. Or how about Puerto Rico, that still hasn't had any disaster relief? Then you have Trina Nut Bootler, who says Roseanne should know better at her age. And Don L. Vasquez, I agree, The View has lost its purpose. She forgot how it was to actually be poor, says Lori Hrabb. And people are really chiming in on this, and we appreciate your comments. Keep them coming.
I have a comment from someone, and it's an old producer friend of mine back in Louisiana. And, you know, being on this shift, I don't know if you guys take any sleep aids. He took sleep aids, and he always had, we call him his Ambien story. So we do understand that. So here's his comment I want to share with you. Lyman, shout out. He's probably asleep right now because he's in Shreveport. But he says, I know firsthand that Ambien can make you do dumb things. And I'm thinking of the stories that he shared with it, like shopping on Ambien, answering the door on Ambien when he shouldn't have been answering the door. Those are the things that he's done. So he says, however, it only brings out what's already there. If she didn't think those things already, they wouldn't have come out during her Ambien haze. That's what we used to call it, the Ambien haze. So I think that there is a side effect that, you know, you do something that you may not have really wanted to do completely sober. But if I wanted to say something, that was a thought that she shared if she was on Ambien at the time.
Right.
But
It's possible.
Didn't ABC know what they were getting into?
Absolutely.
When they hired her and brought her back on, you know, after the existence of Twitter now. I mean, this isn't the first time she's made comments uber right. I mean, are they surprised? And this was just sort of that last thing where it's like, okay, enough is enough. Have they warned her?
Yes.
That was my thing. Did they warn her and say, if you make any more comments like this, or if you go this far, your show will get pulled? I'm just curious to know what those conversations were like.
As a child, and I don't remember, and I wish I had Googled this before, because I remember, again, we were fans of Roseanne in my household. So when it went off the air, we always heard these behind-the-scenes stories. I don't know if you guys remember about Roseanne Barr and how she had this conflict with, you know, ABC and all of these things, and that's why the show really had to go away. You know, maybe it dipped in ratings, but there was always this clash, I've always figured, with Roseanne and the heads at ABC. So when I heard that it was coming back, I was like, oh, our girl's getting another shot. And look what happened. I'm not completely surprised. I feel like there was already a tense relationship between the two. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Could the show survive? This is something Jimmy Kimmel brought up last night in his stand-up. Could the show survive? And I think he was saying it in more of a joking way, like, oh, the show could survive and they just rename it, kill off her character and rename it Dan.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But the question is, could it actually survive? Is that actually a good question?
As a spin-off, potentially, but the show is actually called Roseanne for a reason.
Roseanne,
so.
could they call it? Let's hear from Jimmy Kimmel and what that skit was about last night.
Hear me out. Just because Roseanne is gone doesn't mean the whole show has to go. The show must go on. That's what we say in show business. And with that said, I have an idea that I think makes this work for everyone.
America's favorite working class family is back. With all the cast members you love.
Hey, Dan. Mr. Connor, sir. Hi. How are you doing?
Coming to ABC this fall.
Yeah, that job, turns out it fell through.
Dan.
Oh, come on!
Right? I mean, come on.
That's funny.
I'm just saying.
That is hilarious.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel, and this is the...
Okay.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. The perspective. I watched the show. I DVR'd and watch it on Thursdays after I leave the gym. That perspective was hilarious to me. And I don't think that I would
you
really
watch
watch.
Yeah, she's cracking
I
up over
would cry
here.
because I love Dan. But Roseanne was like, reminded me of so many women of my life, just being outlandish and big personality, not necessarily always the political views, but I know my mama will say some outlandish things. It was like, it was
you could
home for
relate
us.
on
We
any
could
level.
relate on any level with that.
I think that who knows, it may do well. Now remember, sometimes things go too far and shows get canceled, and they do come back. So back in the day on ABC at night, Bill Maher, comedian, who's also been in the news because people are saying, well, what about this comedian, or what about this moment, or what about that? So his name's been brought up lately because he's controversial all the time as well.
Right.
And he had a show on ABC at night called Politically Incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
And he said something that offended a lot of people. He's very liberal, and he got canceled. And years later, HBO picked up the show, and it's basically the same show, but it's on a different network. So for people that love Roseanne and think that this is too much, it's too much for the ABC network because that's not their brand, and they don't want to be associated with comments and this kind of controversy. I'm sure they're fine with controversy, but not this level of controversy. So this may exist on some other network in some other fashion somewhere else, because it's happened before. Apolitically, it's happened with something on the opposite end of the spectrum.
But we've heard from a lot of the castmates who are so against what Roseanne had to say in that tweet. So would the show even exist on any other network like Netflix or Hulu or something? Because would the cast even want to work with her? It doesn't sound like it.
No, Roseanne has been controversial before. Now she hasn't always had this political alignment. It was really as a fan, sorry, I'm having a moment.
Yeah.
And to see the character Darlene come back, because I know that Darlene is very out and proud and very liberal. And I don't even know Darlene's real name, but there's a character on the show, Darlene. She's on the talk now. Sarah
Gilbert.
Sarah Gilbert. She's a gay woman. And Roseanne, they tackle homosexuality in the show. So to see Sarah Gilbert come back and work on the show was like, obviously, something was there, because Sarah Gilbert has a pretty good career with the talk right now, from what I'm thinking. So I thought that maybe the cast, they got along well. I think that they would still work together because they know Roseanne. They've been working with her for a while now. That's how I see it.
Okay, so Maggie Magoo, in my opinion, ABC Entertainment canceling the show because of what one person said is akin to burning down the barn to get rid of a mouse. I wonder how many people are now out of a job over this. How sad. What she said is despicable, but why should everyone have to pay for it? So bringing up that question again, how could the show survive, and could it survive on the ABC network?
If you don't have Roseanne, what do you have?
Dan! They're saying kill her character.
I understand that, but
the same way we thought that it was going to come back without Dan, because he died in the last episode of the last season, so he came back.
When they have these shows, it's Roseanne, and she's the writer, and she's the actress, and it's her story, and it's her concept. And so when these things get picked up, they get picked up as a whole. So you can't start tearing it apart, picking apart pieces, because I'm sure that the whole concept of the show is as it is. And then they can't come in and say, well, we like this, but not this. I don't think that ABC has the ability to do that with usually the way that these shows are picked up. Right. I mean, I'm just like, that's just paperwork stuff.
Joe DeSanto says, call it Rosie.
Okay, there you go.
Trying to avoid the name at all costs.
Look how many comments. This is resonating with so many people.
Michelle Colso-Taylor, boycott ABC. Okay. Aaron Nolf, are they going to say something on the talk today? I know Sarah Gilbert was on Roseanne. Yes, she was, to your point.
Yes.
It would be very interesting. She did tweet.
Wait, we got a tweet about Roseanne. Let's go see what the president had to say.
Okay, Roseanne is Twitter. So Keith Nelson says Roseanne is fully aware of what she is doing and the damage of her words, period. So bringing up another question, is this part of a greater plan of, I don't know, something else? Is this going to turn into some sort of documentary where she'll make a bunch of money? Sure.
President's tweet, hot off the press 7 minutes ago, he says Bob Iger of ABC called Valerie Jarrett to let her know that ABC does not tolerate comments like those made by Roseanne Barr. He never called President Donald J. Trump to apologize for the horrible, in all caps, statements made and said about me on ABC. Maybe I just didn't get that call. Ooh, the shade.
So President Trump is saying, okay, you didn't call me, referring to maybe shows like The View.
I got to call a spade on this one. To your point, you did bring up an interesting perspective. The View plays at a different time, caters to a different audience. Roseanne is on prime time. I see the offensiveness, because if I'm going to say that somebody is making a racist comment, I got to be able to see where someone is making an inappropriate comment in the other direction. So I see that. I see you, President Trump. What do you guys think?
Wow. We're just getting a ton of viewer comments, and the views continue to go up. We're at 232 right now with everyone watching. There's just so many comments. People are just saying we should cancel The View. We're not talking about canceling The View, everyone. We're talking about how Roseanne was canceled because of her offensive comments.
Here's my advice. If you've got a strong, compelling argument about this subject, go for it, because there's something called whataboutism, which is you bring up all these other things instead of the topic at hand. And that's great, but you're not focused on winning your argument. So present your best case as to why ABC should not cancel this show. They made a wrong decision, or that they made a good decision. This is not about The View. This is not about, this is not about Donald Trump at the moment, because he was not involved with these negotiations and the contract. I understand he has an opinion about it, so we're going to read it and talk about it. But the topic really is should they have canceled the show or not?
Kristen Maddox, the ABC network picks and chooses when punishments. I think they were trying to say chooses when they hand out these punishments. The problem is you should have the same punishment for everyone. That's been racist. If you fire one, fire all. Instead of canceling the show, fine Roseanne for her comments. She says fine, but maybe even fire. Fine or fire.
And again, just to point out, Bill Maher, opposite end of the spectrum, said too much, and his show was canceled. So there's been a pattern of this. I'm sure there's a different CEO, different time, all of that, but you know, there's an example of proving your point that yes, maybe it's uneven at the moment, but there is examples of them doing the same thing in the past.
There are so many examples of someone saying something outlandish or offensive, especially when it comes to issues of race, and the hammer immediately comes down. And there are a lot of people who are like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Why are we doing this for this one particular joke? There have been shows canceled, radio talk shows canceled. There have been so many things. The hammer has come down. People have lost their job in the Me Too movement, and people were on both sides like, oh my gosh, this is bad, but we have one person coming out. So we're always going to have that two sides to this story. It's so interesting to see that what stands out to me, that this was a very popular show. I think it was very highly rated for ABC. ABC.
The highest rated show right now.
ABC took a real stance here. It was like, cut that out. But someone brought up something really interesting, Michael Sakis. Did anyone ever consider it's for money? The more controversial you are, your value goes up. We are all talking about Roseanne
That's
today.
the fine line. You want to be controversial. You want to attract views and opinions.
But views
not
to
too
what?
much.
But views to what? The show is gone. If they were to say, okay, it's controversial, we're letting Roseanne go, would
another
people
network
watch
might
it
pick
more?
it up though. So that's the thing. So maybe they're trying to build this other momentum for another network, another streaming service to say, hey, you know what? She's still very popular. We should probably consider maybe relaunching it on our network or our streaming service.
Will the cast members rally around her and the show?
Money speaks.
Money speaks, sure, if they're going to get that paycheck.
Again, I was surprised if they all came back for the reboot. When they did that, I was like, whoa, we cooking with fish grease now.
But now what they've said on Twitter about her comment leads me to believe that they would never want to work with her again.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that relationship is over, I would say.
Imagine delivery though. If say she was saying this in an interview or during a stand-up comedy routine, we could actually get her tone and inflection. But because we could actually see it on Twitter without her actually saying it,
like, this
it
is a
becomes
joke.
way
It didn't sound like a
worse,
joke,
comes
but
off
we didn't
more
hear it.
offensive. So I just wonder if it was different, would have people reacted the same way? I assume yes, because I think that would be the case. But again, we just will never know because it was on Twitter. It's already out there.
You know what's
printed
interesting? With such an outpouring of support for Roseanne and so many people calling for it, do you think ABC would reconsider this decision at all?
They can't, or else they'll look like hypocrites.
If she's not involved.
I think anything is possible. I don't know. I'm asking the group.
Okay, so ask yourself this question: if you support Roseanne, right? That means you have to support what she said in a way, because then you.
I support the show. I don't support what she said.
Well, I mean, in a way, you're I guess you're condoning it. You're saying you don't think so?
I do not.
Because
No, because you're looking at it as a character versus her as a real human being.
person.
Have you never? I mean, there are things that
yes,
actors
but-
do.
So you're just like, ugh, but you
I'm
love
not-
whatever they produce
No,
as an actor.
no, and that's. I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk about this. Yeah, I really don't even feel that conflicted about it. Yes, I was a fan of the show. Yes, I am a fan of the show.
You can
and I'm
separate.
probably going to do that. I am not surprised, but I come from a different perspective. Sometimes people say racist things to me, and I have to still work with them on a regular basis. So it's just my lot in
That's
life.
been your experience.
I am a kicked dog. So I unfortunately, that's my reality. I can't separate it.
I guess that was a sloppy thing that I said.
No, it
what
wasn't.
I'm trying to get at is
blow a light on.
Yes, you can support. You can say I'm against that comment, but I support Roseanne. So then, I guess where would the consequences be? If you don't support that statement, then what should happen to Roseanne? Then, if she shouldn't have her show canceled, then what's the appropriate consequence to this? Because remember what she said.
I know exactly what she said.
People are saying this isn't political; it's racist.
It's racism. I've combated racism all of my life. Sometimes there are no consequences, and I have gotten used to there not being consequences for racist acts. Which is the issue at hand. Unfortunate for me. So what consequence?
Right.
That doesn't always happen. Thanks for everyone who tried, though.
Well, in this case, there definitely there is
A
a
huge
consequence to what she said. So it's going to be interesting, as we always like to say, what happens as we move forward. We will continue to track this story, but know that there is still no Roseanne on the ABC network. Continue to let us know if you think that it should or should not have been canceled.
Will they reconsider?
Thanks for watching us here on the ABC 10 Information Network. If you want to see more stories just like this one, click subscribe.